Have you ever had a stretch of days where you honestly thought, I think I'm finally doing better with my grief? And then out of nowhere, it hits you again so hard that it really makes you question whether any of the healing that you've experienced was real. Your chest begins to tighten up, your stomach drops, your throat feels thick with emotion, your eyes fill up with tears that you weren't expecting. And the thought that almost always follows is, why in the world is this happening again? If you've ever asked yourself that, I want you to stay with me because what you're experiencing isn't random and it isn't weakness and it isn't a setback in your healing. It's actually the way that your heart and nervous system are learning how to survive loss. By the end of this video, you'll understand why these waves happen and how to move through them without feeling like you're losing progress. I'm Eddie Trauber. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and for over 30 years, I've had the privilege of sitting with people in some of the hardest seasons of their lives, especially in grief and loss. And one of the most common, confusing, and painful questions that I hear is this: why does it feel like I'm doing better and then suddenly I'm not? Well, before we go further, I want you to know that I've created a set of free grief journal pages specifically for this topic. It's going to help you understand grief waves and learning how to handle them. They walk you through what your own waves look like, what your body's doing in those moments, and how to steady yourself when the grief rises. You can download them in the link in the description below, and I encourage you to have them handy as you watch this video. Now, one of the most unsettling experiences in grief is the moment you realize you were doing better and then suddenly you're not. You might go several days, maybe even weeks, where things feel more manageable. You're functioning again, you're breathing again. You may even feel like things start to get back to normal, and you find yourself having moments of calm, moments of focus, moments where life doesn't feel quite so heavy. And then one morning you wake up and the heaviness is back. The sadness sits on your chest again. Your body feels tired in that deep bone level way, and the tears come back more easily, and the world feels fragile and thin all over again. And the first thought that usually occurs is, what's wrong with me? I thought I was past all this. And if that's been your experience, I want you to hear this very clearly. You're not regressing. You see, grief doesn't move in a straight line. Grief moves in waves. And in the early days of loss, grief often feels more like it's everywhere all at once. The waves come quickly and relentlessly. There's very little space between them, and the emotional waterline stays high, and everything feels overwhelming, exhausting, and disorienting. People often describe that season of life like they're actually living underwater, like every breath takes effort. And then slowly, something begins to change. The waves don't disappear, but the space between them starts to grow. You begin to notice moments of calm. You breathe more freely again. You might even have entire days that feel almost normal. And then, without warning, another wave rises up and comes crashing down on you. And that's the moment that fear often enters the grief experience. People start telling themselves that something's wrong, that they've gone backwards, that healing has stopped, that they're failing at this somehow. But this wave pattern isn't a problem. It's the design of the nervous system learning how to carry loss. Your heart and your body are adapting to something that permanently changed in your world. That kind of learning isn't linear, it unfolds in cycles. There's an emotional rhythm to grief that looks much more like the ocean than a straight road. Sometimes the water's calm, sometimes the tide's high, sometimes the waves crash hard, sometimes the surface is gentle, but it's all part of the same body of water. One of the biggest misunderstandings about grief is the belief that once good days start showing up, that the hard ones should stop. But you see, grief doesn't work that way. Good days aren't proof that grief's gone, and hard days aren't proof that healing's failed. They exist together. A hard day doesn't cancel the progress that you've made, and a good day doesn't erase the loss that you're carrying. This back and forth isn't regression, it's integration. Your heart's learning how to hold love and loss in the same space. When people judge themselves for these hard days, they add a second layer of pain to an already heavy experience. Instead of meeting the waves with compassion, they meet it with fear and self criticism. And that's where emotional suffering multiplies. Healing happens faster when you stop arguing with the waves. Loss isn't only something that you think about, it's something your body remembers. Your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment for reminders of what you've lost. Sometimes it does this consciously, but most of the time it happens quietly, beneath your awareness. A sound, a smell, a certain time of day, a familiar place, even the way that the light falls across your room. Your body reacts before your mind has the words to. And that emotional wave rises up, and you're left wondering why grief feels so close again when you weren't even thinking about it a moment ago. This isn't weakness, it's biology. Your body's protecting what matters. When something mattered deeply to you, your nervous system learned it at a level far deeper than just thought. So when the world echoes that loss in any way, your body responds, sometimes long before your mind even catches up. That's where those sudden waves come from. One of the most important skills in grief is learning how to stop fighting the waves and to start learning how to ride them instead. That doesn't mean giving up, and it doesn't mean drowning in the pain. It means learning how to stay steady inside the movement of the wave. Most people's instinct when a wave rises up is to tense up, to judge themselves, and to try to make it stop. They start thinking, why is this happening again? I thought I was doing better. And that internal fight only makes the wave stronger and more overwhelming. So let me walk you through what it looks like to actually ride a grief wave. The first thing is to name the wave instead of fearing it. When you notice that heaviness in your chest, that tightness in your throat, the familiar ache returning, gently say to yourself, this is a grief wave. It'll rise and fall. And those simple words can change how your nervous system responds. When you name what's happening, you create a sense of understanding and safety. And safety is what allows your body to settle instead of panic. The second thing is to ground your body. Your nervous system doesn't calm down just because your mind tells it to. It calms when it feels safe in your body. So slow your breathing, press your feet into the floor, feel the chair supporting you, place one hand on your chest and one on your stomach, and quietly name 5 things around you that you can see. That tells your nervous system you're here, you're safe, and this moment will pass. The third thing is to allow the feeling without trying to fix it. Grief isn't something to solve, it's something to carry. When you stop interpreting each rise in grief as failure, something begins to shift. The wave still comes, but it doesn't knock you down the same way. You begin trusting your ability to stay present with the feeling instead of being overwhelmed by it. Over time, that trust becomes steadiness. There's still going to be seasons where the waves are gentle, and there's still going to be seasons where the waves feel rough again. Both are part of the same journey. The goal of grief isn't to reach a place where the waves never return. The goal is instead to reach a place where you know how to remain standing when they do. That's what healing looks like. This is where spiritual support becomes especially meaningful. Scripture tells us the Lord's close to the brokenhearted in Psalm 34:18. Notice it doesn't say he removes the waves. Instead, it says that he stays near during them. Another passage says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Psalm 30, verse 5. That verse doesn't deny the night. It plainly says that we will endure it, but it promises us that it isn't the end of the story. Faith doesn't make grief disappear. Faith gives you an anchor inside the storm. It reminds you that even in the moments when your heart feels fragile and your body feels heavy, you're not walking this path alone. If you're in the middle of a wave right now, I want you to hear this. You're not starting over. You're not behind. You're learning. Your heart's learning how to hold love and loss together. Your body's learning how to live again in a world that feels different. And your mind's learning new ways to make sense of what's happened. This takes time, it takes patience, and it takes gentleness. Now, before you go, I'd encourage you to watch my next video on the first 30 days of grief. It gives you more tools for stabilizing when the waves feel overwhelming. And don't forget to download your free journaling worksheets to support you through this part of your grief journey. Remember, the goal of grief isn't to reach a place where the waves never come. Instead, the goal is to reach a place where you know how to remain standing when they do. You're learning, you're healing, and you're moving forward, even in the days when it doesn't feel like it. See you next time.